right, we are going to talk about the Florida accident that everybody else is talking about, but we're going to bring up something that no one else has brought up. And then we're going to check out the freight, what the market's doing, and a little bit of a market report. So stay tuned after my too long of an intro. 2 minutes. That's all it is. 2 minutes. That's nothing. Ah, yes. Good morning. Good morning, wonderful people. Good morning, people of Earth. How is it going? Let's see how many times I can say the word going. We're going to talk about the Florida accident. If you guys haven't, if you've not been under a rock, there was a pretty infamous truck accident that happened in Florida around Port St. Lucie off the Florida Turnpike there in that county. And there was a driver that did an illegal U-turn on the interstate there. And what's funny is I put up a video. So one of my drivers had a dash cam footage of a truck doing that. And so I got online, because that's what you do with social media. I got online and said, "This is a bad thing. You shouldn't do this because this is horrible." And I got a lot of flack for that. Like, you just need to mind your own business. That driver didn't do anything wrong. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, really? Okay. Well, there are people actually saying that with this accident. Oh, the van driver shouldn't have been going so fast. Da, da, da. I'm like, we live in a corrupt world. We live in a corrupt world where good is bad and bad is good. And it was clearly the driver's fault. Now, I follow a YouTube channel called S2 Underground. It's basically the best way to get your news. No agenda, just 5 or 6 or 8, 10 minutes of facts of what's going on, right? He does it in a military style, which is kind of neat. Just straight to the fact, no agenda, just no bias, just straight facts. And he talked about, so those you who don't know, so there was a driver in Florida who turned on the interstate to go over those illegal U-turns that the emergency vehicles use. And when he did that, you have to swing wide. So you got to go from the far right lane and jump across the interstate to do that. And when he did that, a minivan with 3 people went underneath the trailer, killed all 3 people in the minivan. The guy in the videos doesn't seem to show any remorse, doesn't I don't even know if he realizes what his life entails now. And they arrest the guy. Come to find out, he got here illegally in 2018. And his first accident was actually in 2019 when he went on this old Arkansas 5-ton limit wooden bridge and collapsed it. And the truck went in the water. And how he was able to get another job, you sit there and like, how is that a mystery? But it's not a mystery, because what S2 talked about is something that people have been telling me for the last 3 or 4 years. And what happens is that you got these companies, these authorities that started up during the freight boom. And what they do is they get their chintzy ELD system, and they get minimal insurance, if any insurance, and they don't pay their IFTA, they don't pay for permits, they and until there's too many inspections that puts them out, then they reform the company under a different name. You got 20 people in a family, so it goes through each person. This is not an assumption. This is something that people have told me, facts. People that are fleet owners, people that are transportation directors have all told me this. And so when S2 brought it up, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what's happening. And you guys have seen it in the truck stops with the changing of the trucking company name. Some do the duct tape, marker job, then others do it professionally with the magnetic deal, and they just put the magnet over the deal, and away they go. And this company that this guy was driving for in Florida is one of those type of companies. Now, the part that I said in the beginning of what nobody's really talking about, though, is that we live in a society where problems are created so the quote unquote savior of the government can come in and save everybody from this problem that initially that they created. I mean, if you look at the health pharmaceutical aspect of life that I've dived into, create a bunch of health problems through diet, and then create the solution of the pharmaceuticals that solve, quote unquote, the problem. And so if you look at the last 10, 15 years of the country, I wholeheartedly believe that you hear about these criminals getting out, and like you look at, I watched a documentary about Seattle, and you have repeat offenders that literally get arrested 50, 60 times, but never get jail time until they kill somebody. And even then, it's so next thing you know, crime is rampant, illegal activities rampant. And then now, people are screaming for a solution, and that solution is never in our favor. It's a means of control. So create the problem, become the savior of the problem, creates dependency, and it's never in your favor, right? So that's kind of that's the thing that no one's really even talked about, because you have all social media outlets, like I follow a lot of gun gurus, like Kerry Trainer and Mr. Guns and Gear, and even these people have said something about that accident. Hodge Twins has said something about the accident. People outside of the trucking industry are paying attention to this. The news is paying attention to it. Come to find out that the dude was here illegally at a time where people from India had a pretty easy time to come in. So why did he avoid that? What was he avoiding? And then the other thing is, It brings light to the non-domicile CDLs. Turns out that California gave them a CDL. And then the safety aspect, you can be a 3-truck company, have one accident, one out of service, and your insurance goes through the roof. And next thing you know, you're out of business, right? How is it that this person had a serious accident with some serious insurance payoffs to I don't know what they did with that bridge, but that guy was able to still keep a job or have a job? Most of the companies, like, I've only been a company driver for one company, and if you rolled a truck, man, you were done, unless it wasn't your fault. And good luck finding a good company to sign on to, but that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. And so, and that's what that really good market that everybody was, wishes that we were back at, created. Because people got desperate and got into the authority thing, and they were making money hand over fist, and I wholeheartedly believe that this rash of scheduling that I'm seeing with all of these loads wanting 700, 800, 900 miles in one shot, even after I call the broker and confirm, like, you realize it's not possible. Well, we probably are looking for a team. No, you're looking for that driver that's willing to have a second logbook because they can put a magnetic sign up, or they have a ghost driver in the truck, and and get that done for as cheap as possible. And so there's going to be a change that's going to come. I mean, in some ways, I hope there's going to be a change that this accident brings to light, right? However, I can guarantee you that the change will not be in our favor. It's just going to make it harder for the honest people, while the dishonest people find the new loopholes and continue to do what they do. And that's just my thoughts on this, right? I'm not going to bash immigrants. I'm not going to bash immigration, because legal immigration is cool. It's all right. But when you have, and I guess there was someone in California that was arrested for, well, basically you can go up to this person and buy a CDL without having any of the qualifications, to the tune of like 1,000 people. A few years ago, quite a few years ago, there was a school out in California that was found to not be doing their stuff correctly. So everybody that had gotten a CDL from that school were suddenly told, you don't have a CDL. And so, and so this crackdown on this English thing, I think it's going to be even harsher, because the family of the people that were killed in Florida, they should be suing just about everybody, including the state of California. And it's hard to buckle down on those companies that are consistently changing their signs, consistently changing their insurance, consistently changing the owners, and move freight that way. And so you guys have seen the change in the last 10 years in that world, and eventually something comes to light out of a tragedy, and that's what's happened. So but my aspect is, it's going to create the savior of it is going to create new issues. It's going to make it harder, just like all the freight fraud, all the double brokering, all the dispatch services, making it to where, making it hard for a self-dispatch company like trucking, such as like trucking, I should say. And because they only want to go through one email address. They only want to go through one phone number because they don't want to be exposed. And that's why companies like Highway are gaining a lot of traction because of the fraud that's gone rampant, right? So, all right. So, I'm going to get to the comments, and then I want to do a freight report. I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but I am going to go over a couple of key points that I want to point out. And then I can't make this a long live feed. I've got a truck that I got to deal with shortly after this. I don't think that person will be empty until about 9:30. But and there's some stuff going on, so I got to check that out. But anyways, if you're gonna go live, my algorithms are down. Also, if you're into any of my merch in the merch store, I don't know if it's because of the tariffs or what, but like half the stuff is not available. Like you can still get a shirt, but like, and maybe the black coffee mug and a hat, but like the stuff that no one else is buying other than the travel mugs, none of that's available. So it says out of stock. So I don't know when it'll be in stock. So if you got like the travel mug or, no one ever really bought the shorts, which, is kind of dumb. And that's how I found out. I was like, I'm going to be dumb and buy my own pair of shorts. And out of stock. I'm like, why is this out of stock? And then I looked and half my store is out of stock, but the t-shirts are still there. So, and the hat's the important one because, you can wear that every day. You can't wear the same t-shirt every day. So, so anyways, we're going to get to the comments because I'm sure you guys have weighed in on this, and then we're going to get to the low board stuff and then the report. So if time will allow. So let's go. The Bull of Woods, TJ, what's up? Top of the morning. Hey, did you see that off topic here, TJ? K-Bar came out with a new smaller knife that I think is pretty rad. I'll have to find it. Desert Okie Pam, good morning. Bull of Woods, what's up? Tennessee Trucking, how you doing? Good morning, Cheap Freight Hauler. Hope you're doing well. Gary Cook, thank you for your membership. Thank you for all the members on here. Good morning from Cleveland. That's a good spot to be in right now. Mrs. A, morning. Harold, good morning. Oh, wait, that's for OTD. Never mind. Yep, I'm not the tick turd. CDN, good morning, Steve. Sad story, yes. Isn't a not DOT number? Isn't a DOT number? Isn't that registered? Yeah. There are so many legal like processes that were ignored in this whole process. Like there's so many quote unquote safeguards. Like I had a driver call me freaking out. He said, "Hey man, this broker says that their vetting thing says that we have 0 trucks and they won't give me a load because of it." He showed me a screenshot. It's like, well, all they got to do is go to FMCSA website. Shows 26 trucks, and I don't know what service that was, but it wasn't Highway or anything like that. And so, that's let me get this up here. So, yeah, there's so many legal. I mean, the guy shouldn't have even been in a truck in the first place. He shouldn't have even had a CDL. That was the first line right there. Right? I mean, this ain't the 80s where, you can kind of answer a few extra questions on your license, get a chauffeur's license, and be on your way. A lot of old school truckers have that story. Oh yeah, I never drove a truck before, but my friend told me to get in. We drove around the block, and boom, I'm taking a load to Detroit. And you'll figure it out from there. And those days are gone. But apparently, there's some companies getting away with that. And look, my truck has been hit or almost hit twice with drivers that literally, like, there's no way they even passed any part of a CDL test. The guy that almost hit me at Costco there in Morris, Illinois. There's no way that that dude had a legit CDL. No freaking way. Because it took him 20 minutes to do an easy straight back. And he could not understand me and another driver's directions in our language, and that was part of the struggle. If I could have just said, hey, turn towards your problem, come back, don't move around, you're good to go. Instead, I'm like using hand signals and everything else. And the only thing he could muster out is first day, first day. That's it. That's all he could freaking say. And this was like 3 or 4 years ago. And that dude would have wiped out my truck had I not been in the front seat with the air horn when he was setting up the back end. And I'm sure some of you watching this have had your trucks hit at the truck stops. Right? I know Pam did. Desert Okie Pam did. And I've seen that. All it takes is someone to wipe out your hood at a truck stop, cause a huge tow bill, take forever in the insurance, and you're down for a month and a half or 2 months while the truck's getting fixed because it's undrivable. And that puts you out of business. Not to mention the safety aspects of that. Music City Transport, good morning from Wilmington. My name is Nobody. Good morning. Dying Breed. With some legalese. California should also be held liable for that accident as well. Yeah, I said that earlier. When bad actors enter the industry at every level and every aspect, carriers, brokerages, etc., the industry as a whole deteriorates. Trucks that won't pass, drivers illegal, all for profit margins. Yes, that's what it is. Good morning, kids. Every law and regulation ever created was in full effect when the minivan went under the trailer. Our government failed on every level. That's true. Regardless if the driver was legal or not, where does common sense come into play? The human operating the truck. Well, that is another story. Like when he took the bridge out in Arkansas, it was the fact that he couldn't read the sign, right? But the no U-turn sign is literally a circle with a cross over it. But common sense, that's the kicker, right? Common sense says that this person should never had a CDL. Common sense says that he shouldn't have had a job after the first accident. Common sense says you don't like there's footage out there of drivers being on walking trails in parks because they don't know what they're doing. I mean, you see it on Facebook all the time. People in these hiking trails, like, how the hell is a tow truck driver even going to get out of there? Let alone how the guy even get in there? And like just recently here in Springfield, the Springfield downtown has a square, right? And it is so obvious that you cannot put a semi truck with a trailer down this thing. And in the second time in the last year, it happened. And they got these pillars all around the square. And so the guy getting stuck ruined basically his axles, the rear wheels of the trailer, the rims, everything. And the first time it happened recently, it was a Werner truck. Like, common sense is gone, CDN. I mean, yeah, we all gripe about the person that doesn't pull forward, after getting fuel, or the person that like gets on the cat scale and goes in, while still on the cat scale. However, there's a true sense of there's a true lack of common sense, and like that was the thing. If you watch the footage of the inside the truck, he's literally like, do do, da 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 da. Oh, I hit something. Huh, interesting. Like no regard where he was at or what he was doing. Oh, I'm sure a lot of things, cheap freight hauler. Oh, you know what? I should put here, let's do this. Show the comments on the screen. He used common sense in India. That's common, and cars stop for it. Yeah, I mean, I believe in India they don't even have rear view mirrors in their vehicles. Yeah, and that's true. I've heard that. What we all witness is the cheapest autonomous truck we currently have available. Propaganda will now enforce that they need driverless trucks because the human factor is so dangerous. There you go. That's one of the saviors, right? The unfortunate trickle down effect of these tragic accidents is insurance rate go up for the whole industry. Yes, it meanwhile the others avoid their insurance. And right, yeah, insurance goes up, rates go down, quality drivers leave the pool, it keeps going. I will look and see about the K-bar. Thanks for letting me know. Cliff notes on the freight report, Georgia sucks. I seen a TikTok of a shipper refusing to load a truck. The load was tendered to one company, but a different truck showed up. The MC had been in business 2.5 months and had 400 plus inspections. Wow. Yep. I trained with Snyder in 1995. I was told by the safety department and my trainer, U-turn, anyone caught making a U-turn would be terminated. Yeah, most companies have that U-turn policy. I remember I was going down the interstate in a climate truck. I think they're based out of St. Louis area. One of those guys turned in front of me doing a U-turn on the interstate. Of course, I yelled on the CB. He didn't care. So can't rent a U-Haul, but can drive a semi, right? I'm on bumper number 4. Wow. Jeez. Well, with that long hood sticking out, I mean, dude, I don't know how you sleep at night, to be honest with you. Just like freight rates also goes insurance rates. Has insurance rates trended up over the past 5 years? Absolutely. It's put people out of business. It's that second year. That's one of the main reasons why I didn't get my own authority. Everybody said, Steve, get your own authority. And I had the tools to do so. But one of the things that I was afraid of is that, you get your second year, even without any inspections or anything, and then they jack your rates up. Now you're kind of stuck. And I saw it happen here. So Chief Freight admits something. We're not going to read that out loud. Nothing better than someone slamming their door into my mirror and looking like at me like I was at fault, right? I never had any issues at truck stops back in the day. It was the new non-speaking drivers that would be lost asking directions to the office. The sign that said ship and receiving office was above them. It took 6 months to fish this truck out of the river after the bridge collapse. Wow. The video shows this passenger sitting on his phone, like no concern, like, oh, we doing a U-turn on the interstate? No biggie, right? And there are some people saying that he should be arrested as well. Good to see you, Harold, by the way. I'm guilty of making U-turns before, but I did it when I felt it was safe to do so. But majority of the time, I always found a huge parking lot to turn around. I'm guilty of this. So I have a trainer story, right? When I was at Transland, I was a trainer, and there was a guy that was in my truck, and I had this sixth sense. I could sniff when I think someone's got it, when someone has potential, and when someone doesn't. I didn't have high hopes for this dude. And anyways, within a week, I called my dispatcher and said, "Hey man, get me through the yard. This dude's not I'm not finished training this dude." So I go into the safety office and I said, "Look, this guy doesn't need to be in a truck. I'm not training him. And if you put him with another trainer, he's just going to cost you money." Well, write a whole. So I wrote a whole 2-page report of why this dude should not be in a truck. Okay. Now, rewind a little bit. When I'm training, I always bring up worst case scenarios, hypothetically, right? So if we're driving down a 2-lane highway like in Arkansas, I go, "Hey, oh no, we just missed our turn. Now what?" "Oh, we'll just find a place to turn around." I'm like, "Okay, well, as we're going, you tell me which parking lots you think you could turn around in." And most people will pick a church parking lot. But what they fail to realize is that most church parking lots, yeah, they're big enough to turn around in, but they're not big enough to get into. Okay. Give me a second here. And then it makes them think, okay, yeah. So when they're by themselves, they'll think of things like that, right? Well, anyways, so they put this guy with another trainer. Oh, maybe it's just a personality conflict, Steve. Okay, whatever. I'm telling you, it's going to cost you money if he doesn't hurt somebody. Well, he did 1 week with me, and our training program was 8 weeks. And he had to do another 8 or 9 weeks with another trainer. And I talked to that dude, and he's like, "I don't know, man. I don't know." Like, dude, why is he in your truck then? Anyways, so about a month later, I come into the safety office, and I go, "Hey, how's so-and-so doing?" Because his trainer told me he's already hit like 3 things in parking lots. And I go, "Well, Steve, well, here's what happened. He was on Arkansas 7. Those familiar with that road knows that that's a very narrow road. Well, he missed his turn, and he was trying to turn around in one of those tractor pull-off spots and got stuck. He's lucky he didn't kill anybody because it was around the blind corner, and it cost $30,000 worth of damage to the truck." So the smug look came on my face because I was right. I said, "Guys, you could have just written me a check for 15 and be done with him and saved yourself 15 grand if you're just going to throw money away." "Ha ha ha, Steve. Yeah, yeah, yeah." Well, so next time I tell you that someone doesn't need to be in a truck, maybe you ought to listen. He was lucky, but he was trying to turn around in one of those like tractor pull-off spots. That's not even wide enough. But what happened was is those tractor spots are like that much, like 6 inches lower than the actual road. And so he got stuck on there and caused 30 grand worth of damage and shut the highway down, obviously, for a minute. Crazy, right? And tow truck drivers love these stories because they make a ton of money off of that. $250 an hour, right? I sleep with every chicken line I have on and borrow a few if I can. Also, I run when they are sleeping now. There you go. I've been lucky with insurance rates over the last 6 years. Rates down every year. This year it was 13.6, and that's with brand new CDL holder. Good deal. U-turns are safe when they are safe. This guy seemed happy to have a car hit his trailer. I've done a U-turn once, just a little past America, Wyoming. Blew a drive tire with a load of lumber on the trailer. If in this situation today, I'll wait on road service, right? Steve, you the class 1 drivers in your chat have been good stewards for the trucking industry. Thank you for your due diligence over the years. Well, thank you for your gratitude. let's go over this report real quick. There's something I want to point out. We're just going to do a summary real quick. SST, what's up? All right, so rates are down in August, which we went over that last Friday. Chattanooga to Michigan is down. I can verify that. I had a driver call me going, "What the hell?" Rates going into the Southeast are up, obviously. Why? Because Southeast is more difficult to come out. Volumes are currently below both 23 and 24 levels. That's what this chart is. Christmas parade is running right now. If you go by any Walmart Supercenter, you will see that they have the containers out. That's what they do. They store the Christmas stuff starting in July, late July, early August. Now, brake safety is next week. So the rates might come up a little bit. Volumes are down 16% year over year during the same period. See attached chart. The U.S. and China extend a pause on higher tariffs for goods for each country until November 10th. The extension prevents U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods from increasing up to 145%, while Chinese tariffs on American goods were set to hit 125%. The Port of LA handled over 1 million 20-foot equivalent units in July, up 8.5% from this a year ago, in the busiest month since the 117-year-old port began handling containers in 1959. But our volumes are still down. New Jersey's working on their own version of AB5, and they're going to start doing the ABC test in both California and New Jersey, following the same structure. Unofficial deadline would be election day of 25. Okay, a recent mid-year survey from TruckStop and Bloomberg Intelligence, 37% of brokers reported higher load volumes year over year. Only 19% of carriers said the same. Isn't that odd? Maybe someone can explain that to me. With lower courts issuing split decisions, TQL, C.H. Robinson are asking the U.S. Supreme Court to decide if brokers can be held liable for carrier crashes. This is the fifth time the Supreme Court has been asked to review broker liability. Now, let's go back to the Florida thing. Was he under a brokered load? Did the and if so, did that broker do the due diligence of how sketchy that company was? Because if they didn't, they could be held liable. They could be part of this massive nuclear, lawsuit. Here, I'm getting my coffee cold. So yeah, the bigger carriers or the bigger brokerages are going to be freak out on that. Right? Insurance giant Marsh has launched BrokerSafe, a first of its kind insurance facility offering up to $10 million in contingent and auto liability coverage via US and London markets, designed to provide US freight brokers with more stable and affordable auto liability coverage. Huh, what a coincidence. All right, let's go to load availability because I got to cut this short. I will say that, yeah, broker may not know whose truck their load was on, right? Well, this is my last load for the week. Customer loads were slower than expected this week, but they're promising next week will be rocking. Good deal. Shannon Thomas, non-trucking. She's in the house. Literally, she's in her own house. All right. So let's put this on Van. This is the 123 low board, 123lowboard.com. 48065 is my code if you want to try it out for free for 30 days to look at the tools that are available to you. This is for Van. Green doesn't necessarily mean great rates, but just means a little bit easier to find the load. As you can see, there's a little bit more yellow in the west, which is a good thing, but also could be a bad thing because they're giving you less to go west with. So what would normally be $1.80 now is $1.60 because it's easier to get out of there, especially California. You're lucky to get $1.20, $1.30 going into California a mile. So if your costs are $2.25 a mile, are you getting $2.25 or above that getting out? Losing game sometimes. Losing game. Usually the same players. New Jersey is about the only state, New York and PA and Maryland, that are actually doing something. As far as, well, even Maryland's yellowed out a little bit. Michigan's been slow here lately, but I've been able to do okay out of it. I've primarily been running my trucks sugarcane in this area right here. I've managed to stay out of Georgia for the most part. That market has definitely died. And pay attention, it's hurricane season. There might be something on the way. You never know. And so if you see a really, really, really good rate going into Florida, check the weather, right? T-Bone, what's up? Yep, Shannon's still at home, but we won't bring attention to that because it makes her sad. See, look, she's crying. Or no, it's vomit. Never mind. She's throwing up. Gross. All right. Reefer is, well, it's harvest season, so there's a lot of different things going on, and you're going to start seeing the holiday freight being the frozen stuff being shipped. You know, those holiday cakes and pies and cookies and candy and all that stuff is shipping now. I'm seeing an uptick in pallet loads, which is, you know, usually a good sign of things. And I also see an uptick of ingredients, flour, you know, additives for food and things of that nature. And so reefer's not looking too bad here. And then flatbed, broken record. It's all southeast, but I do know that flatbed has slowed down a little bit. Yeah, look at that. It has increased a little bit in the northwest. I almost said northeast. Don't go northeast with the flatbed. You're gonna hate life. So yeah, I don't have time to really dive into the rates a little bit at all, but I just wanted to put this out there. I wanted to say something about the Florida thing, and I wanted to give you a freight report. Pretty much more of the same as far as the markets. Texas is changing a little bit. They're paying a little bit in and out of the Dallas and Laredo areas that I've noticed. And Arkansas seems to be bipolar. One day it's really good, and other days it's not. But I've done pretty good out of it. I can look back at my last 5 dispatch weeks and see the patterns that's been working for me and for the drivers. And anything that's away from that pattern, we're struggling with, like West Coast and stuff like that. So, anyways, 48065 if you want to try out the 123 low board. I do use it every day. I use the tools. You've got load availability, trip builder. It'll even keep track of your documents, profit calculator, mileage calculator, which also has a toll calculator, and then some other extras and all that. So, anyways, strength for today, hope for tomorrow. Hopefully we'll see you Friday. Maybe not. And yeah. So keep on trucking, be safe out there. No U-turns. Use your common sense. Come on now. Peace.